official recording.
Welcome to Best Boys of Film Podcast, an amateur film study podcast for the average Joe, the buffest buffs, and the cringest bingers. I'm your host, JP, and I'm joined by my brother, professional Hollywood videographer,
Kory Cavish. Hey, how's it going, everybody?
All right.
Welcome back to another
Welcome back.
wild week in cinema. Although I don't really think anything happened this week other than the DC fandom.
No, yeah, we ain't talking about that. But what do we got on the docket today? What do we got on the docket?
This week, so in preparation for Denis Villeneuve's Dune, we figured we'd watch the new Blade Runner and from 2017 and contrast it with the original and see, how those two work together. How do they go side by side? Is Deckard a replicant? Who knows? But
first, also, I think it's worth mentioning that Ridley Scott has a new movie out as well, The Last Duel. I think it's out now, and we plan on doing that a little bit later because he's got another movie coming out in a couple months. I think it's in November, or I think actually it might be in December. House of Gucci. We're gonna do The Last Duel and House of Gucci together. So then this is technically also half of our future Ridley Scott episode.
Yes.
So it's a little out of sorts, but it will all make sense in due time. So next week is our Dune episode, which we've been very much looking forward to.
I'm super excited.
It's been like the one we've had circled on the calendar since we started this thing. The double Dune.
I'm just excited as an excuse to rewatch the Lynch Dune.
Yeah, I think it'll be good to see, I'm seeing divisive reviews for Dune, but I'm seeing mostly positive things. So I'm excited to compare and contrast the two, especially because most people regard the original as a failure. And I think it's entertaining, but, all right, we'll get to that.
Granted, it also had the hype of our dad loving it.
I think that's what it is. We have a lot of bias for that film, which we'll save and get into next week. But this week is another sci-fi double feature classic. It was nice. So I watched these films back to back with my girlfriend.
Same.
And it was really nice. I think we took a break for dinner, but it was really nice watching these back to back. This is also my first experience with the final cut. I've only ever seen. I originally saw the theatrical cut, and then I saw the director's cut. I have the director's cut on DVD downstairs, and I notoriously hate the director's cut. It is so long and boring. It is so boring. It makes this exciting, interesting movie too slow and too boring and just too much JF fucking Sebastian. And that's what we're JF Sebastian as a character is my divisive point of this film, of the original Blade Runner.
I thought that the director's cut just it was like the difference between the final cut and the director's cut was a couple added violent scenes added into the final cut and like a color grade.
It's a lot longer.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I knew the theatrical one's the one that's like god awful garbage with Harrison Ford phoning in.
No, the director's cut is awful. Director's cut sucks.
That can't be worse than the theatrical.
Well, the theatrical, like it moves faster. It's more pulpy. Like they spell things out more in the theatrical. They try to make it easy to understand. Whereas the director's cut, it keeps all that mystery. It's just super long. I honestly wonder if the 2049 was more inspired by which cut was Denis looking into when he watched or when he was
the final cut.
Because the length of 2049.
I was looking into it, and this is supposed to be a continuation of the final cut.
Because boy,
for
it's 2049 long, and that is
I didn't feel it for me.
I don't
personally.
think it's bad. I don't think it's bad, but it just is long. It's not like I thought that it was boring. It's just, is it worth the time? Did it need to be that long? Like, because there was a lot of hanging on shots of so much shit in that, and I love it. I love the movie. It's a great movie. It just the conversation I think deserves to be had. So let's start with the original though. 1982, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Harrison Mother effing Ford, Sean Young, and Rucker Mother effing Howard, Daryl Hannah, and it's a good cast. It is such fucking ahead of its time movie. In terms of, I mean, I guess the story is very noir. It's very like retro noir mystery, but through this future cyberpunk lens. The aesthetic of this movie defines, I would say, the cyberpunk genre for a lot of people. The aesthetic of it,
everything.
So many movies. The sets hold up so well to this day. I think I actually think I like the way that the sets look in the older one better than the new one. It has a much more feeling how cramped it is. But I guess they mention how like people are leaving the planet to go off world to the colonies, and that there's like more space. But you don't really get that feeling in the original. But in the later one, it does feel a lot more empty. There's a lot more space, especially once he's like out flying around to his spots. It feels a lot more empty and sparse. Where this movie is dark, dirty, and cramped is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, I agree. This is I love that like when you say ahead of its time, like not only is it ahead of its time just from like a visual aspect, but just like everything about this movie does not feel like a movie that came out in 1982. Apart from some of the acting, definitely fits that era, but the I think
even all the acting is really good. Like Rucker Hauer's performance is fantastic.
I think he's the best acting in this, but Harrison Ford has a lot of flat delivery lines that I kind of feel like, well, like, because I guess you're used to seeing Harrison Ford and a lot of other things, but
he's supposed to be much more. Well, think about how Kay is in the second one. Like they're much more like,
but the way Ryan Gosling
delivery.
delivers his line, but the way he delivers his lines has a lot more like. Not mystery, but just kind of like more weight to what he's saying, because in the subtlety and in the few lines. Whereas a lot of the times with Harrison Ford's lines, I felt like it just kind of felt flat.
Cold.
And then
I think it's meant to be cold. I don't think it's flat. I think it's cold, and that's like how all the characters kind of are. Especially like the humans seem to be less lifelike than the robots. There's this theme of more human than human. It comes up in both films. The phrase. So I think that's like a coldness to him. And then as you find out, I'm not going to spoil the ending immediately, but you know, it's on the table that he himself might be a replicant.
And that's essentially the theme of the whole movie, is just is he or isn't he, and it has him questioning himself throughout the film.
It's not blatant though. It's very subtle.
No. It's I would say until you see the ending, then you realize how like prevalent I feel like that was, because I had it because that's what once it got to the past the Sarah Young stuff with Rachel's character, it very much had me questioning for the rest of the movie, like is he, was he, isn't he, just because of the way that like she even asked him like, have you ever taken the test and stuff like that, and
that's the first little hint at it. And then, but it's subtle. It could easily made it a main part of the movie, and it's kind of like this background question on your mind while he's figuring out this. Like, it's more about Rachel. It's more about finding the other rogue replicants. I don't know. I think it works well for it. Like I said, the director's cut always came off super boring to me because of how flat, cold. All the movie is so dark. Every scene, everything is dark, and it makes it feel a little bit samey Whereas this had a little more. It just pays so much better, and I'm engaged. I was engaged completely the whole time. Like the movie was in. There's only like 25 minutes left. By the time we were like decided to check, like we were already at the end when it was time,
Yeah.
It was good. Both movies were paced well, but this one in particular, the story is just broken up into nice chunks. The only part I don't like about I'm just gonna get into it is JF Sebastian's character and his place with his little people, toy people, and it is the only part of this movie. I'm like, man, this is dated in a bad way.
Yeah.
And the actor who plays JF Sebastian, I don't have his name up in front of me, but he plays a character. He runs the motel in Deadwood, and he is so funny. He speaks very eloquently, but he's an idiot. Like he's one of those kind of people. Like speaks with big words, but is so stupid. So it's not the actor or anything like that. Like he's meant to be goofy. It's just I don't like the little people robots. And Riss pointed out, she's like, there's just like so many little people in this movie. Like in the future, there's just more little people. She like wanted it if it was like not in an exploitative way, but just like using it as a like this is how weird our world is. There's so many people of different sizes, like kind of like in Star Wars or something, but you don't have the liberty of aliens, so you have to demonstrate how different everybody is in more ways.
With the Sebastian stuff though, his were his toys, like robots.
No, I know what they are. I'm just saying that they look bad. Like they didn't look good, and they didn't move good, and
100%. Yeah, I thought you meant there are scenes where you have like little people coming in to try to like like pick up stuff in the streets after like a car is sitting there for a while.
No, she was pointing out there was just a lot of little people actors in this movie, just period.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't an issue or anything. It's just something interesting, like why he chose to do that. So like that period is when I always start to tune out in the movie. It's like I'm always interested at first, and then they like the toys and the director's cut is so much longer, and that's when I end up always like hating this fucking movie. But this time it's not bad. It's quick. It's a little bit quicker. He just shows up at Tyrell's golden Egyptian future palace in the night, and they kill him, and then they kill JF Sebastian, and that's the end of it, and the movie keeps on ticking. It's kind of abrupt. Like they introduce him then they dwell at his apartment, and I guess they kind of are in there. That's where they're at in the end. Is his apartment, and apparently he's like a geneticist, and he helps work on the replicants, but he's kind of a goofball, and they kind of I don't know.
How do you feel about
they don't like appreciate him or something?
Yeah. How do you feel about his accelerated aging? How he's 25, but he looks like he's 45.
Oh yeah. That was cool, I guess. It's just like I just the reason why he's still on the planet.
Yeah, and that was like the one replicant brings up. It's like, oh, so you and I are the same because we have accelerated lifespans.
Yeah, they connect. They make that connection that way.
I think it's just kind of a way to kind of link the because for the replicants part, they're trying to create because they're going to use him to get to Tyrell, like a link of emotional empathy to kind of create between the two. So
I get what his place is in the plot. I just think it's an awkward and not good part of the movie.
Oh yeah, it's very awkward. I just meant like for the listeners at home, like this is what it's going like. This is the themes of this scene or whatever. But yeah, it's very the dolls and all the mannequins and everything. I think set off it takes a movie into a weird turn, similar to when Harrison Ford's doing his like wacky voice in the dressing room with the one
I like that. That reminded me of Star Wars. That reminded me of Star Wars when he does the voice. He does the voice when he's trying to be like, hey, everything's fine up here, no problem. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
When they're rescuing Princess Leia on the Death Star. And he's
This
like,
one was
now,
so jarring to me on
I
this, and
yeah,
then
it just reminded me of Han Solo, so I was fine with it. It was a very Harrison Ford thing.
it was yeah, it was just it seems like super goofy at the time. Like it you get used to it because it keeps going on. He doesn't break it like immediately. It's like
Well,
a
he's
good
like
couple minutes
playing
in.
he's trying to play
Yeah,
this character, but
yeah.
it's obvious that this lady knows, like, has figured out
Yeah,
who
from
he
the jump,
is.
like, you're supposed to be this world-class Blade Runner, and you're that's your that's your fucking, uh, like, disguise technique. I don't know, I thought it was fun. But, like, it didn't take me out of the movie, it was just something that was kinda, like,
That didn't
for me,
bother
like,
me.
a
That
point a small point of levity, even if it wasn't intended to
Yeah,
be.
I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Whereas JF Sebastian is not levity, it's just creepy. It's like creepy doll clown shit.
Mhm.
And I get
And then
that, like,
all
the
dark.
replicants are like, I get the themes. Like, the themes is not my problems with it. It does
Mhm.
it's all cohesive in that sense. It just doesn't work. But I love so much about the movie. I love the technology that it just looks like a bunch of gadgets from the 80s
Mhm.
and 90s, like, taped to each other.
That just have
Like, they're just like modular things. Like, it's a TV and a camera and a viewfinder and like, it's just like
but
a
it's all voice command, like, the future, like, and everything
there's
works no
no
matter what he
mouses and
says.
mice and keyboards. That bugged me about both of these films, is that they're,
Yeah.
like, trying to avoid using a mouse and keyboard. Like, we are beyond using mice and keyboard. The future is we figured something else better than that.
Like,
And
it's 2019, we're still using 480p CRTVs, but we can get full fluent voice translation and voice commands and all that shit. It's like that's where the priorities went in the technology
they
rather
really
than
lean into that in 2049 with, like, the
Mm,
Alexa stuff. Hologram
yeah.
and holograms are the big tech in the next movie, but also they lean
Mhm.
into, like, the voice assistant and voice command stuff. Um, so there is
Yeah,
stuff that they get, I think, right. Um, but
I forget a lot that this movie is where the whole enhance thing comes from, that
enhance.
is
I said
spoofed
that
on in
too.
every other thing.
Yeah, I particularly think of it from Super Troopers. When he just types enhance. Um,
Yeah.
the Well, the other thing is, I think, important to remember about this movie is that in the cyberpunk genre in general is that it's supposed to be the product of pure capitalism.
Yeah.
This is what happens when corporations are allowed to do whatever they want. Um, and there's this great, technological advancement, but also great inequality. There's cultural diversity and like integration, but also you have this great, divide between the poor people and the rich, and then that's a hallmark of the genre, to
Mhm.
the new cyberpunk game. I feel like the new cyberpunk game, people wanted to lean into that a bit more, but
Mhm.
um but yeah. So I think that, yeah, that's something super important to consider. And in 2049, like 30 years have passed, so like there is change, but it's also like a lot of the same shit.
Mhm.
At the same time.
Yeah, like the cars are similar still. Like a lot, it's kind of like how in reality, where like from the 80s to now, like there's some things that radically change, but there's a lot of things that are just still the staple and are the same. Like cars fundamentally haven't changed from the 80s to now, aside from like speed and
The
ergonomic
body style.
options. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But like,
They don't look the same, but they are the same mostly.
yeah, but
Oh,
for the most
I'm
part, a sedan is a four-door with a hood and a trunk, and like generally speaking, where same with this, like the flying car that Kay has is very It's just a more refined looking, less that it was made in a
yeah,
prop house version
yeah,
of the same car Decker had, which I
yeah.
kind of like. That made it have a more like grounded place in the world, where it's like it's just because it's 30 years doesn't mean that like the whole fucking thing got way more like futuristic. It kept like a lot of the grunge, and it kept a lot of the old aesthetic from tech stuff, just made it slightly sleeker. Because that's a lot more in reality, at least how I feel, and I appreciated that with the aesthetic on this. So much of this, like especially in shot composition and some of the scenes with the lighting, that it just looks straight out of the original movie, that I appreciated. But we're still on the original movie, so back to that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the original movie.
Sorry, I was talking about like the 30-year gap between the two movies.
Yeah. I think that the darkness of the original movie it works well for the aesthetic, but I can see why they didn't stay with that for the new one. Like it's more brighter and it's more color. It's colorful during the day more.
Yeah.
Where I mean, there's still a lot of dark and rainy shit, but the old one is more about dark, like lights in the darkness. Like there's a lot of lamps,
Yeah.
and like indoors there's like lamp lit stuff and like illuminated by like lights all around and things like that, ambient light.
Yeah, a lot of this of original Blade Runner's lighting would why I think it's so ahead of its time is like as time in film has gone on, it's soft light and big source soft light is become the norm and just what everybody chase. And this movie, it feels like 20 years ahead of its time for from a lighting perspective because it's just giant soft light single sources. But mixed with like the noir hard light stuff. Like in the beginning when he goes to the he gets called into the his boss's office, and his boss, man, he was the other character that I thought did not have great line delivery in this movie. But
but that guy's like a
when you're in there,
classic character actor, dude. He has like a million roles. He's in
just
he's still alive. Emmett Walsh. Yeah, he's a classic actor in so many things. He's in Knives Out. I think he's in Knives Out. Yeah. Sorry.
But anyways, so you have scenes like that where you've got this massive blue hard light going in when they're looking at the projectors, but then you get to the outside stuff where you got like giant green or giant blue coming in from the side somewhere, and it's just like letting it fall off. There's not a million lights trying to illuminate everything. It's more like I felt like more realistic, gritty kind of lighting, and then you have all the colored accent lights from all the neon signs, and when on the interiors you've got your big soft light coming in through the window, and then the only thing on the inside is those small lamps, like you're saying. And it's very much how movies of this nature are nowadays. Just seeing it.
Just funny that the movie that's made nowadays doesn't look like that. The Blade Runner sequel does not look like that. Decidedly so, I think.
Yeah,
it's much more sterile. It's like a dirty, sterile feeling. That's what I kept describing the new one. The old one is just straight dirty and dark. It's not clean, very unclean.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to city life more in the 80s. In the 80s, cities were a lot dirtier. There was a lot more crime.
Less care for like recycling and environmental shit.
Well, just like the cities didn't have policies for any of that. So like if you went to New York in the 80s, it was just like you go look at pictures of the subways in New York in the 80s, and they're covered in graffiti and there's trash and whatever. And I think that speaks to that also a lot more than today. And like in the city scene when Kay's eating new rice and whatever, it's more lit up, but it's kind of like that, but it definitely feels more like modern movies where it's cleaner and lit. Everything's well lit up. It's very fluorescent, lit up like in an office. That's how a lot of this movie's lit up, like an office.
What, at least 2049?
Yes. Yeah. Whereas the old one is lamps. And there is fluorescent lights, but there isn't so many that it illuminates everything completely. But in the new one, every indoor shot, other than like in the gold places and like the stuff that's like colored. But as far as like when the Robin Wright scenes and stuff like that, when he's going to see his boss, everything's fully lit up like a hospital.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It is the oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Oh, I was gonna say having that it feels I think it tries to separate itself from like the first movie is a lot more of a noir, and this one and the new one is to a point, but I feel like
the first half definitely is.
Yeah, it just gets away from the noir to be more of like a grander sci-fi film when it starts bringing in a lot bigger world themes later into that movie. But things like the Vegas desert and stuff, even though it is so bright and it's very much, it still fits the aesthetic of the first movie, but it's still new and unique.
I don't know. I don't like it. I think it fits only in the narrative themes. I think aesthetically, It's more like this movie is 80s future, or the original movie is 80s future, and 2049 is definitely 2010s future in terms of the color palette and how, like the color period. Like it's the use of color. They're both colorful movies, but it's like neon signs in the darkness versus, you know, this gradient of orange and yellows in this irradiated Las Vegas, you know, like the colors in there are just, it's a different use. They're both colorful, but I would consider the original Blade Runner just be so much darker and muted. There's a lot of grays and blues. And the new one has, it's more like it's washed out too, but it doesn't have the texture. It doesn't have the grit. It does not have the grit.
And it goes all in on that like teal and orange craze of the 2010s.
Yes, I'm surprised there isn't millennial pink, the salmon that people love from the 2010s, or like mint green. Those are like the four colors of the 2010s. Mint, like a mint green, salmon pink. I don't know what color you want to call that. Orange that is definitely in this movie, and then what was the other one you said? Turquoise teal.
It's teal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the first Transformers movie, like Michael Bay, like really got that into the mainstream, because that all of those movies, starting with the first one, are just heavy teal and orange, and then every action movie, every like kind of thing trying to be a little grittier, just went teal and orange for everything, and it's so oversaturated, and it looks cool, but when it's done for everything, it kind of takes away any kind of meaning behind it, other than just we did it to make it look cool. But I think it worked in this movie, though. I definitely was on board with the whole aesthetic, because even though you get those big bright moments of a lot of light, you still have those nice like kind of more muted, grittier stuff, like when Kay's ship gets shot down and all those like stragglers are trying to beat the shit out of him. Like you have that, which is a lot more muted feeling, and you have the like the stuff towards the end.
It's the color. The coloring changes depending on the scene, whereas in the this old one, it's much more consistent. It's very consistent to the point where it can feel claustrophobic, I think. And I think it's like a good part of it, but also it's something I think is that's why I think the director's cut doesn't work. Is 'cause it's too long, and it's too much. You're dwelling in these same scenes for even longer, and it's so much gray. Like J.F. Sebastian's place is so gray. And like the spotlights, Riss kept saying J.F. Sebastian's apartment building looked like a prison. Like it felt like a prison.
A lot of his apartment building, which I've been to the building that they shot that in, it's the Bradbury building in downtown LA, and which is normally, if you go to it, it's all brown and beautiful. So they did a good job of making it look this. But this reminded me of like the first Burton Batman like architecture aesthetic, but on the inside, where it's like gray and almost gothic feeling.
Yeah, that blue gray. I know what you're talking about. Like the late 80s, early 90s used this blue gray. Even like think about in Terminator 2 in the insane asylum when they're breaking out the mom. You know, I'm talking about super blue. Everything's super blue in that. This isn't quite like that, but I think it's like a proto kind of a feel. And it doesn't date it. It's just it's an aesthetic choice that I think it works. It works, but I think it works best in this cut versus the others.
And honestly, going back to the J.F. Sebastian scene, if you replaced the dolls and mannequins with something less childlike and something a little more like,
they're supposed to be
for
toys,
25-year-old age appropriate.
I get that they're supposed to be toys,
but I feel like if you swap that out with something more like,
so creepy, weird.
Like
I want to get a picture of one of them.
Like replicants built apart, like you know, like half put together or something like that, rather than like these like this clown general and these like really weird like Victorian dressed up mannequins and stuff, which are creepy as hell. But I feel like a 25-year-old is not going to be making that kind of stuff. But at the same time, because he looked old, he's probably never got his youth, and so it's like that's his way of clinging back.
Yeah, what's with the European officer, 1800s officer look?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just
with the
very like,
clown teddy bear thing. Like somebody was whoever designed these was trying to say something with them, like war games.
yeah, that is that if you replace that stuff with something a little more realistic for the setting, I feel like that scene would be a lot less hard, not hard, but a lot less like taking you out kind of thing. Because the conversations that they have in there
No,
between the rest
yeah,
of the season
that's
is
all
great.
good. That's all good.
Yeah, it's just the setting is a little bit like, which I guess that's 80s creepy, is like dolls and things like that, and I get it, but
Clowns. Yeah,
um,
so weird. The
but
fact
it
that's
yeah,
so
that
weird.
definitely dates it.
But like it makes sense because like if you're able to make flesh robots, like Westworld style
Mm,
flesh robots, that you would be able to make weird abominations, that are toys to
mm,
you but are fucking freaks of nature. Like they don't look like any real living thing. You made something weird and new on the hodgepodge.
mm.
And I maybe that's it. They creep me out, but not in a good
Mm.
way. In a way that just feels like it doesn't work, and it feels inconsistent with the aesthetic of the film.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Everything else seems pretty timeless. Like you can watch it at any point and it not feel old, but that one really sets itself in 1982. Um,
but other
I
than
have,
that, that is like my only gripe with the old one. Like I know I
yeah,
keep talking
honestly,
about. I know I probably said if you took a shot every time I said JF Sebastian, you'd be dead probably. But Um, it doesn't get in the way of the movie being great, and it
yeah.
isn't it does work like I said with the themes and everything. And it takes you to the next one, to like the next section. How did you feel
I-
about Daryl Hannah as Priss?
Um, fine until she started doing like back wheels or backflips and cartwheels and stuff for no reason. I feel like that was just, you could have just finished Deckard off a lot sooner if you weren't trying to back up for all these flips and things to give him a chance to get his gun together. But outside of that, no, like, she was great. I thought she did a great job of just kind of like when Jeff Sebastian finds her, and she's like intentionally like making it look like she's homeless, covered up in the trash and everything. At first, I almost believed that she was just a homeless person heading like just without somewhere to go. But then as soon as after she runs into his car and breaks the window and then like immediately turns around and comes back and was like, oh nope, she's one of the replicants.
What
But
did I thought the costume design, like the hair and the makeup, it was
I
it was very reminiscent of 80s goth and 80s
yeah.
like new wave and stuff like that, like Susie Sue,
The,
and those kinds of, and like The Cure and those kinds of things.
yeah, yeah.
And
It wasn't.
I liked it for that. It was like very future, but of the time at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I came off as a bit as it feeling a little dated, but but looking at it for the time, like yeah, it works with the like the white face with the black spray paint line across
And
the
then
eye.
yeah, it's like a
Um,
weird creepy mime thing going on.
yeah.
But it
But I
fits
mean,
with the
it works
clown.
for
It fit with the clown thing of
yeah, yeah.
JF's whole place.
And then once Roy got there too, it just kind of added to just the level of it. It almost, for a split second, just reminded me of Akira for some reason. I don't know why, but
Well, Kira's
um,
also influenced by this movie, I'm pretty sure.
um, yeah, I could definitely see that. But I want to ask you, when I noticed this when I was watching it and I wrote it down, the Ridley Scott is seemingly having a bringing the theme of this movie about bringing meeting your maker, and then he brings the same themes into the Prometheus later in life, where it's the whole when Roy meets the Tyrell, Mr. Tyrell, and ends up killing him. And then you've got the juxtaposition of that in Prometheus, where they meet their maker, the engineers, but then the engineer just immediately kills the old man and rips David's head off. So it's like, I guess that's Ridley Scott seems to be like not enjoying, but like I'm trying to think how to word it. Bring like that being a common theme between movies and his movies and stuff. I find that interesting because that is very much what these movies are about and all that, and questioning it with religion and stuff. I just find it's very interesting to kind of like tie it all together. If that makes sense. I'm having a hard time putting my words together for it.
Yeah. I don't know. The Meet the Makers, the Gold God thing, I think was super interesting. That was scene with where Roy was talking to Tyrell was one of my favorites in the
Mm.
movie. Yeah, all the Roy scenes are probably always everything he's saying. I'm just super
Yeah.
interested in his motivations and reasonings, and because it makes perfect sense. Both of the films talk about slave labor a lot, and the second one I think even has a much longer kind of monologue about slave labor and how we we lost the taste for it with humans, so we made more, artificial ones to do it for us, and that kind of stuff. I thought those are really interesting. All that was really interesting as well. And with automation and the way technology is headed, it's these questions are going to be coming up. I think maybe not in our lifetimes, but I bet not long after. Like they're already talking about having like humanoid robots working in factories. I know Musk has talked about it. I know he loves to talk out of his ass about things, but he was talking about it, and I know they use right now, and even in some Amazon places they have like exo suits to help. Like, it's not suits, but like exoskeleton things to help them carry things and stuff like that. Like, we are headed to this future. I think it's not quite as dirty as we thought it was going to be, or not quite it's not quite yet apocalyptic. But we are living in a capitalist cyberpunk world now. Jeff Bezos. That's one thing that me and Riss said, that Elon Musk probably loves Blade Runners, both movies, but instead of
reasons.
but he always wants to be Tyrell or Jared Leto's character Wallace in the other one. Like, he's like, that's me. I'm that guy.
I'm making the world better.
Yep. And then it's like, doesn't like, look how great I'm making the world, except for look at all the poor people and the people living in horrible conditions, and because all you're focused on is advancing your own shit. All that stuff is so relevant, and I know that the 2017 one's still fresh enough that it's timely. But the old one even has a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. Going back to your little exosuit thing, I was gonna say when I was touring and doing a lot of traveling for work pre-COVID, there's a lot of delivery bots on like college campuses that we were at, or even just like small cities that we were at, where there's just these little white guys and they got a sign on it that says like delivery for XYZ food place or whatever place, and they're just like they're like probably about like 2 feet long and about a foot wide, and they got 6 wheels, and they can go up and down steps and curbs, and they can ride around campus, and just they're delivering food like DoorDash and shit. And it's like, man, that is wild. And their collision avoidance was really good. As soon as somebody got near them, they stopped and just waited till everyone was gone, and they can cross the street and have all their like paths and shit. And it's like, this is just a glimpse of what could happen in another like 20 years if self-driving ever can become more viable. But I just feel like self-driving thing might not be viable until there's like a federal network that they all can connect to, kind of like how like with airplanes, every airline knows what every
like Skynet,
so they don't intersect and hit each
like
other.
Skynet. No.
Well, this would just be for cars.
Yeah,
but I feel like that you would need something like that for self-driving to fully take off the way like the future movies set it up as.
Yeah.
Speaking of driving, though, how do you feel about?
Back to Blade Runner. I feel like you're going on a tangent.
Sorry, all right. I was just saying, like, we are closer to that future. But speaking of cars, though, how dope / insane is it how Gaff was driving the car when he first picks up Deckard? He's got like this big helmet on, and his hands are like locked into these machine things.
Well, it's like a pilot, because it's very much like a piloting a aircraft. It's like halfway between an aircraft and a car. So it's like the preparation needed is more like that.
I feel like you don't see anyone else in the movie drive the car in the air like that, though. But
no, you don't see anyone else in the movie drive the car. That's the only scene in the movie you see somebody drive, I'm pretty sure.
I think Harrison Ford drives the one because he's in his car at one point. like waiting outside of in this one scene. I can't remember. It's the scene where the people are trying the little people are trying to like break stuff off of his car, and then he drives away. I can't.
But I
remember.
think it's different when you're driving and when you're flying. I think
yeah.
That's the only time we saw Gaff when Gaff flew.
I like Gaff. Speaking of which, I thought he was a very, very interesting character.
Yeah, he's one of the leads in Battlestar Galactica's reboot. That's how I know him. Yeah, I like that. The big old, he's the origami guy, and he kind of reveals, in the end that he's aware of Deckard's dreams, which I think definitively reveals that Deckard is a replicant in the end.
Oh, for sure. Ridley Scott has even said in numerous interviews,
like, it's not up for interpretation. Deckard is a replicant.
Yeah.
And that's why he lives in the irradiated area in Vegas. So me and Riss were like, because like that, you got that out of that too. Because at first we're like, this is irradiated. That's why no one lives here. And then like we were confused on the dog, but then we're like, the dog might be a replicant. And then Kay asks, is the dog a replicant? And bees can live in radiation. Or they can animals can adapt to radiation, but it takes time. Like insects are much quicker to do that. But
yeah, I was curious what well, we'll talk about that movie in a second, but
all right, well, let's just score this fucker, so then we can stop doing back and forth in this.
Well, did you like or dislike? I know a lot of people hate that Deckard's a replicant. Do you like or do you dislike
that's what makes the movie good. It's the twist. It is the twist of the whole movie. Because like I said, it is not obvious that you're supposed to be questioning this. Until like it places the breadcrumbs, but it's like, what's that unicorn dream? This means nothing. The unicorn dream means nothing, and then that's what brings it all together in the end. And I think
I was sorry, good.
No, say what you're gonna say.
I was gonna say I was fine with it too. I thought it worked well. I was seeing some people online saying that it ruins the whole movie if he's especially about like him being a human falling in love with a replicant if he ends up being a replicant. But I don't know. I thought it fit like everything that the movie was building towards and everything, and questioning who you are and whatever, and then to find out in that last moment that you are not at all what you thought you were. And then just to go in the elevator and it closes on a black screen and that's the credits. I thought that was fucking hard. It really just, I thought, was a perfect ending to that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what are you gonna score this thing?
I was gonna give it a 4.5.
Nice. That's where I'm sitting at with it too. I'm at a 4.5. I really like this a lot. I could easily watch this again. It doesn't feel long. It's very interesting to watch. It doesn't feel slow, and it's visually striking enough that even in the slow moments, I've got something to like enjoy out of it.
Cool. All right, are you done? You want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Blade Runner 2049. This one I had no idea was going to be almost 3 hours long, though. But it did not feel like it at all. I was shocked afterwards that this didn't feel long at all. I did one break just to go to the bathroom, but those very much paced well. But also, this is kind of like this is the kind of shit visually that I just love and get entranced with.
It's paced well. I don't think it needs to be this long, but I think that it's fine. Like, it works how it is. And I don't think I'd like take away from it for being this long, but do I think it needs to be this long? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of long takes. I remember when he was walking into the orphanage place to get the wooden horse, that it felt like an eternity. Like, I felt like I was gonna fall asleep because he was walking around in this place alone, and I'm just like, dude, we just showed you walk through this whole place in your dream so much faster than this. It is so long. That was the one that was like, me and Riss both like were about to fall asleep in that scene. Because, like, we knew where it was headed. We didn't even need to see this because we saw it already. and it's just taking its time. Like, yeah, we know the horse is in there. Just get it, dude. Get the horse. And I get it's a
I
big
think,
moment for him, but it was
Mhm.
too long. That it was just one example of like this did not need to be this long.
Yeah, I think during this scene, Kylie like made it hit the nail on the head of guessing of like what the end's gonna be. We just were talking about that when this was happening, so it didn't feel that long to me. Because by the
Well, the fact that you were talking over it it pretty much validates.
yeah. But it was cool. That orphanage scene was cool until he wanders off on his own, and then yeah, I get what you mean about just like
I get that it needed to be there. I don't have a problem with it being there. It's just like I felt like I might have fallen asleep for like 5 minutes, and I woke up and he's still walking slowly through the place.
Yeah.
It's like one of those where you lose track of time and you don't know how much time has passed. If it was just like a minute or was it like 10 minutes, you know?
Mm-hmm. But overall, overall though, I didn't really have any problems with the slow parts though. I think I was just so appreciative of the like a lot of the establishing shots in this movie and a lot of the shots of just like in the streets and stuff feel like they're straight from the last movie. Like it almost felt like they had the same DP just with better cameras and lights and stuff. Or like when he specifically one that really stood out for me as like this looks straight out of the last movie was when Kay goes to the Wallace Corporation for the first time, and then you have that like very wide shot of the like the you have like the corner point of the hallway, but you're seeing down both of them, and Kay is up on the talking to the bald guy at the thing, and it just like it holds on it for a good bit, and it just felt so much like the last movie in such a great way. And I like doing homages to previous films in that way, where it's not in your face, but it's very much like, you know, we get what you want, what you're looking for out of member berries or whatever. It's so cool. I like so much of that stuff. A lot of like the outdoor street stuff in the rain, even though it never rains in Los Angeles, it does in this world.
Well, it's climate change. That was a big theme of the movie that kept coming up. Is it's snowing in Los Angeles?
Yeah, it was which I just figured maybe they're in the mountains because it does snow in the mountains out here.
No, we destroy the environment. There's no more trees. They have problems growing things.
Yeah,
it's climate change.
But well, yeah, that makes more sense. But I mean, it didn't take me out of the movie or anything. Thought it was silly.
Was silly?
Yeah, just like to make a joke of this, like I've been there. It doesn't rain at all. That's like
that wasn't a joke. It was meant that like this is what changed. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just meaning like making a joke with Kylie when we were watching it. But how did you feel about Jared Leto's performance? I loved him and wish that there was more of him in this.
I don't know. I think it was a little hammy. I didn't think it was bad, but like he's just doing a voice. It just sounds like Jared Leto doing a voice. And like I don't know. Like you could have got somebody that like talks like that or something. Like an older guy or I get that he's like a cyborg, so he's not going to be old. But I don't know. It sounded like Jared Leto putting on a voice. It wasn't bad. Like it doesn't take me out of the movie, or I don't think it's not gonna make me knock the movie. But I also like, it's like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Really, I had the opposite reaction. I really liked the performance, and I was hoping there was going to be more of an like when the end of the movie was happening. I was really hoping that he was going to end up back at the Wallace thing again, or something. After
the character's existence honestly is weird. I always remember that being a gripe that a lot of people had with the movie. Well, I remember when it first came out was like they didn't know what to make of Jared Leto's performance in
it. But how did you feel about the which I was a little confused by this scene, and I wanted to ask you about it. But when Jared Leto goes into that, it's like the bag that I guess it's a replicant being born. I guess is what that is.
Yeah, that's what that is. Yeah.
And then he just he says some shit, and then he just stabs it in the stomach and kills it, and then leaves. And I was kind of confused about why, because he was talking about the replicant that gave birth, and they want to find it and all that stuff. And I was just like, "Well, are you just gonna kill replicants now until you have the miracle baby, or yeah, because
it was supposed to be symbolic. It was supposed to be symbolic. That whole thing." That's what that whole thing was. Like it was birthed a person, and then they were like kind of like a baby deer, like the way that they couldn't stand yet, and and then he just sacrificed it because he could. Like he has their lives in his hands. He's the god.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. At first it just kind of like confused me a bit, because it's like I read it as this is the old tech, it's now dead because we have this miracle baby that is going to revolutionize replicants. So what's the point in these old ones?
No. I don't think that's what I don't think that's what it is, at least. I don't know for certain.
But, hey, it's making you think. But
what?
Yeah, I mean, it's something like if it's a scene that creates two different thoughts out of something, then I would say it's a good scene if it makes you think.
Well, but that would be you're saying a definitive plot point that is never explained or alluded to or anything.
Well, because the scene could be left up to
like that, but that's you're interpreting a major plot point, versus just a symbolic gesture. Like that. That's what I always have issues with. Like me and Risk get in discussions like this, where it's like you can read anything read anything out of anything, but if it's like a major plot point of the film, like this is part of his master plan, and it isn't like there's not really any evidence to really back that up, then besides this speculation on what was happening, then I think that's the difference between like symbolic interpretation, because I don't know that's what I said. I don't know that's exactly what it is, but it's not like, if it's not that, it's not changing like the arch, like the arc of the thing, if that makes sense. And I don't mean to poop on what you're saying. It's just that's I think the way I differentiate those two kinds of things. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a problem. Like I said, Jared Leto shit, didn't have a problem with it. It was just like didn't make me mad or take me out of the movie. It's just like, this is a goofy voice, but it's he's going for something.
So is he? I took it as he was blind, and then he was using that little implant to control robots to be his eyes for him. Is that?
Well, I think he has extra eyes. It's like a cybernetic enhancement. I think that might be the case also. Like, but I was taking it as like he wanted to see you with his main eyes, which also appear to be lighting up and enhanced. But he has these extra camera eyes that he can see you at 360 degrees at the same time.
Yeah. I was curious, because I was very much looking at his hand movements and stuff when he was like sit down, and then he would like take someone's hand and stuff, about whether it was like blind or if it was just he's just got wild eyes. But beyond Jared Leto, cast wise, speaking of Knives Out, the girl who plays Joy was also in Knives Out.
Anna de Armas.
Yeah, how did you feel about the AI relationship?
She's the best character in the movie. Best character in the movie by far. Most interesting thing about the whole thing, I'm sad when she died. I thought it was just a commentary on the Alexa thing, but also kind of reminded me of a movie like Her.
So much of Her, the exact same. This is shot way better, but the exact same plot point happens in Her, where he gets a surrogate, or the Scarlett Johansson's AI gets a surrogate, and then they try to like have sex and stuff. But this, I thought, did it way cooler with the hologram, like trying to.
Yeah, that's the difference, is the hologram technology. The movie brings it up in multiple ways, not just with the AI thing. But yeah, the relationship's so sweet, and in the end, you kind of wonder this was just all what she's programmed to do, because you see like an ad version of her, and she says similar things. and it kind of
And she even calls him Joe.
that's like the moment when Ryan Gosling decides that he's gonna like sacrifice himself. Yeah, I don't know. I liked all that though. It was done really well.
Yeah, her performance made me care about Ryan Gosling more, if that makes sense. Like it put weight to his actions more because it felt like he had something, even if it wasn't real. It felt like he had something intimate and close for him to lose. Especially when he like disables her and erases her out of the home and to take her into the pocket edition. To take with him and stuff. It was like it made me feel like it's showing more human emotion at him, and it's showing like how his as a replicant in character he's growing more human. You could argue, but yeah, I was so sad when Love stepped on Joy's little thing. I don't want to call it joystick, but the
Emanator is what it was called.
The Emanator, that's it. Yeah, definitely felt super sad. I was very upset about that. I kind of wanted there to be like a quick revenge thing where Gosling just kills Love right there, but the movie must go on.
Yeah, what did you think about Love?
I don't know. I felt at first I was like, oh, this is just supposed to be like a Rachel looking person to call back to the first movie. And then she just, I didn't realize that like she essentially can just do whatever the fuck she wants because of Wallace Corporation owning the world essentially. So she's just like murdering people to go. She murdered Polka Dot Man, which made me sad, to go get the bones, and then the Joshi the cop.
Yeah, so there are a couple character actors in this movie. We got Wood Harris and David Dastmalchian in the same scene. Which was cool. Wood Harris is a Best Boys alum from Dredd. I think at least Dredd. I think he might even be in something else.
But that I don't know. I didn't like her character, but I think I'm not supposed to like her character. I think that's the point. Is to just kind of like
she's the only real villain of the movie.
Yeah,
she's the true villain of the movie. That's why other reason why I was like, the way they're using Jared Leto was weird, because like, is he the villain? Or I mean, he is the villain. Like he is the villain.
He just said he wants the child, and he just said get it, any means.
But he's
possible.
not in the movie that much. Like it's a strange way to have used him. It almost made it seem like this could have been a sequel to an even bigger world.
Yes, I agree. I felt like that a lot, especially
which they will
when
not do. They will not do because this movie bombed so incredibly hard.
Which is sad because I don't think it deserved to bomb.
But this movie is not. This isn't a movie for a Marvel audience. And
this
you can't give. This is a Marvel, but this is a popcorn budget. And that's the problem that you have when you want to do artsy films with big budgets. And it's why you don't even get artsy mid. Like I was watching a thing. It was with one of the Skarsgårds, the older Skarsgård, the one that's playing Baron Harkonnen. And he said something like, nowadays all the films that get made are either hyper big budgets that are like Marvel movies or small indie budgets. That studios do not take chances on middle budget movies anymore because they are the hardest to make money. Like the big budget movies are sure things, are supposed to be sure moneymakers, and then indie films are low risk, high reward if it's good. And you can make a movie like Ghost Story and make money off of nothing.
Yeah.
No money involved. I think that's the cautionary tale of this movie, and I'm glad it exists, but I feel like there's going to be less movies like this too. I guess honestly though, I might be full of shit because Dune is getting made. Dune has been made by this director, and it's supposed to be in the same vein. But if audiences don't vibe with it, like they did not vibe with this, that's it's gonna be like Chronicles of Narnia. They're gonna make 3 movies and stop.
Yeah, well, apparently the new Dune only covers like I think they said half of the book.
I thought it was like half or a third even.
Yeah, it's not the whole book.
It's
I know
supposed to be
that, and so
part
it's
one.
supposed
It's
to be,
supposed to be
yeah.
part one of the book.
And they're planning on a sequel, but whether or not they, I mean, I hope it does well because I like this director.
I'm
Prisoners
all.
was my favorite out
Well,
of his
yeah,
original.
Prisoners is
This is
we need to
phenomenal.
next time we do Denny, we got to do Prisoners because it is his best film and it's like one of his few non-sci-fi films.
And few non-giant budget. Like Arrival was a pretty big budget too.
Yeah, it was.
There's a lot going on in that movie. But
I forgot about
Prisoners,
Arrival. Arrival was a big hit. But I think
that's
it
what
not
I
being
think.
tied to a franchise honestly helped it. Whereas Blade Runner is like Blade Runner wasn't even like it's a kind of a cult classic, film head classic, but it's not really a mainstream.
The original flop in the at the box office originally.
I don't know. Keep talking. I'll tell you.
But anyways, aside from Denis Villeneuve, who's a phenomenal director, I did like, speaking back to Love, I did enjoy that at the end of the movie where she like went to go swim, or she thought she killed or beat Kay, and she's like, "See, I'm the better one. Like,
I'm the best one. No, I'm the
Yeah.
best one." Because that was when I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." So her whole character motivation is just to be the best replicant.
Yeah,
In the eyes of her creator, of her god, almost, essentially.
And one of the characters,
because she also refers to everybody as good boys and bad boys. That actually comes up a lot for Ryan Gosling's character. People call him good and bad, good boy and bad dog, good dog. But yeah, she seems to be very interested in serving her master, but she wants to be the best dog. She wants to be the best. She takes pride in her work.
Yeah, and one of the characters, I can't remember who, brings up earlier in the movie about saying like, "Oh, you must be really important. You actually have a name," because none of the other replicants get names.
I think Love said that. Or no. Ryan Gosling said it to Love. Ryan Gosling said it to Love. He's and she liked that. So there's little subtle things where her and Ryan Gosling will emote. Somebody says that Ryan Gosling doesn't have a soul. I think it's Robin Wright.
Yeah, it is Robin Wright.
And he looks a little sad. Like he's just like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." And that moment was the exact same as when he says to Love, "You must be special if you have a name," and she like has this like slight smile and like blush almost. It's like, you're a robot. Like, I think it's really interesting. So the big difference between the replicants of the sequel to the original is that they're supposed to be much more obedient, and they have less like free will and less range of motion. But after those two scenes, we see that there are definitely still emotions in these people. What did you think about the baseline test for the replicants versus the test in the first movie?
The Voight comp test.
The Voight comp test, yeah.
I thought the Voight comp test thing was pretty cool. I like the whole eye scan stuff. On this one, it kind of felt like it was more of a quick side thing, like a nod to the original, and less of like
I got that as well. And it was like fast. It was much faster paced. Like much more intense.
Yeah, which I don't know. I just kind of happened. I didn't really feel anything. I was like, oh, this is the new version of it. Okay. And then I moved on. Whereas like you had that whole twice in the original Blade Runner, you have the opening sequence, which is, we didn't even talk about the opening sequence, which is phenomenal. Where you've got the Blade Runner interviewing the guy to see if he's a replicant, and they do it all slow. They have the machines come up, and he's asking all the questions, all slow and everything. And then it comes back again with Harrison Ford with Rachel. And he's just firing his questions off, and it's very much more tense because it almost feels like Rachel, before, like, you assume she's a replicant, but this is before we're supposed to officially know.
Yeah,
seems like predetermined answers, as if she knew the questions. And Mr. Tyrell even brings up about like, how often does it take you 100 questions to tell somebody if someone's a replicant, because he had to with Rachel. And he's like, it's hard, but it's like he knew or whatever. But I it just felt like it had less importance in this movie. It was just more of a nod.
What did you think? I thought the CG Sean Young looked really good. Versus the other movies that do de-aging for actors. They didn't use the real Sean Young in 2049. They just got another
Mhm.
actress and put her face on
Yeah.
her. But yeah, I thought this was probably one of the best examples
Yeah.
of
Agreed. This
using like it's way better than
Grand
Tarkin
Moff Tarkin.
from Rogue One. Probably the worst. Honestly, didn't hate him when the first time I saw him. Trying not to get on a tangent, but
Yeah.
but still better than even like Leia in the Rise of Skywalker or Luke in the Mandalorian or I don't
Or
even
Leia
know.
in the end of Rogue One.
Yeah, all of those. Like, yeah, this is the best one of these I've ever seen. I
I
don't.
would say what.
I think the lighting is part of the reason why it looks so good. Is all the
Mhm.
gold and the water, like the gold water thing.
Yeah. I would say some of them, like the Sam Jackson de-aging and Captain Marvel, is what I thought was probably the best de-aging in a movie, but this one beats that, I think, for sure. Um, there was no uncanniness. You could never tell really in this one, or like it's not like Robert De Niro in the Irishman where you can clearly tell it's de-aged because the rest of his body is so like still old
Well, yeah, they
man.
didn't make her do anything. She just walks up and says a couple
Yeah,
lines.
it's like
And then
it's like knowing the limitations of the technology and working with it then instead of against it.
yeah, yeah, I thought that was fine. And it's what we kept talking about. Is this may be the very few examples of a film that is a sequel movie, cash grab sequel, 30 years later, that is actually good.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of another one. There's been so many of in the last 10 years. Like
Yeah.
rebootquels, remakequels, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
them. They are
Bill and Ted 3.
yeah, 9 times out of 10 terrible. It may be probably more worse than that odds wise, but this
Mhm.
is a good one. And
Yeah, honestly, I feel
because they
like
had,
even without sorry, good.
well, I was just gonna say the fan service shit is like a reason that is always a detriment to these movies is because you have to make people that watch the original feel like, oh, I remember that. You got to give them the member berries. So like you do have those moments with Harrison Ford. I honestly think that Harrison Ford does not even need to be in this movie. I think that this
Yeah.
movie could be just fine without Rachel and Deckard being in the movie.
Mhm.
Like in the way they used him, I'm fine with it. But like if they would have used him even more, it would have made the movie bad. And I think that
Agree.
that is something that is a mistake on all these 30-year later sequels is you rely too much on the original source material instead of like living in the world. This
Mhm.
movie does that. We are in the world of Blade Runner. This is not a direct sequel to the story of the original.
Yeah, I think if you had any more Harrison Ford, like more Deckard stuff, it would start to feel like Star Wars Episode 7, where it's just like, remember this guy? Now he's here for the whole movie, and it's like where Deckard's in this, but it's mainly to just for a little bit of exposition, and then yeah, he gets taken back to Wallace and all that, but it's more just it fits with the plot and fleshing out what the plot is because it's all they're all looking for this hybrid child. Well, I guess not hybrid. It was born of two replicants, but they're looking for this replicant-born child. Um, and like logically, that's what if you found the dad of it, you would want to go whatever. And I don't even hate the fact that they made Harrison Ford and Rachel the parents of it because based on how the last movie ends, they're running away together. Like it just all kind of made sense.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, I don't. You do kind of need to see the first one if you just want to get anything out of the Harrison Ford scenes. But other than that, you don't really need to see the original. It's just to
Mm,
know who Harrison Ford is and like the
yeah.
couple references to the original. Yeah, I don't know. It's good, super good. I did look up the original was a $30 million budget and it made 41.5 million.
Ooh, that is not good for that time period.
Yes. So it was not. It didn't lose money, but it was not a box office
Well,
success.
you got to remember, you got to double that budget for
Marketing.
marketing,
Yeah.
so it probably lost money. Um, but it became a cult hit, so it made its money back, long term.
And
Um,
DVDs.
Yeah, and all the different cuts that's like selling the movie 3 different times.
Yeah, all the
But
cuts really. I think the cuts also is what muddies the um the legacy of the original film.
mm,
Oh, I will say the original film score is way better than the new one score. I barely
yes,
even
I
noticed the new one score, and the old one is like, holy shit, this is
it
Vibe
sticks
City.
out in a good way. Yeah,
Yeah,
the sample
Vangelis.
from your song it came on, and I was like, I know this.
Yeah,
This and
same,
then I
same.
kept waiting for the boom bap drum beat to drop, and it
Yep,
didn't, and I was
same.
like, "Ah, man." But it worked. It fit the scene and everything. I definitely loved the soundtrack of that. I wanted to ask you, since we're pretty much into the meat and potatoes of this one, how did you feel about the big plot point of the movie where the switcheroo of it makes you think that Ryan Gosling's character is the child, only to have it be pulled out halfway through the
I
movie?
liked it. I liked it. Just straight up, I liked it. I thought
Mm,
it was really good. Like to fuck with it, like to be with the audience, and like I was doubting it as it was happening, but
mm.
but not in a way like I thought. Like it was just like this is weird. I don't know if how I feel about this. And then they didn't go with it. And I was like, oh, this makes sense that he was
Yeah,
implanted because we know from the first movie that Rachel was implanted with memories from Tyrell's niece or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So that
and
I was curious about, and I wanted to ask you. So I took it as he was a replicant made to be put in the place at the orphanage to take the place of the daughter, and then that's why he has the real memories of like him and all this stuff. Or did the daughter make it her way all the way up through the
no, no,
orphanage
that
and
was the daughter's memory because she
Gotcha,
said
gotcha.
because the way she said, "Oh, these are like these. Someone lived these," and she
Yeah,
like
yeah.
looked at him all sad because she knew that memory herself.
Gotcha,
Um,
gotcha. Yeah, that's I figured. I just wanted to make sure on that. Kylie and I asked that question afterwards. But yeah, that's I figured it was that.
I think that's why they didn't find any information on a boy because there wasn't a boy
Mm.
there. Um, they just changed all the records in the system or whatever.
Yeah, you just had like the twins with the girl dying and the boy lived, and then that like made you think that's the real thing that made you think it was
It's a
Ryan Gosling.
little. That does remind me of Star Wars a little bit, but not with the just that there's twins, I guess, boy and girl twins,
Mhm.
I guess. That had to be hidden away. But
Yeah.
yeah, I like it. I'm right. I can score this one honestly.
Yeah. Last thing I'm gonna say is so Ridley Scott produced this, and I don't know how much of a hand he had in this, but I feel like not a lot because I feel like a lot of modern day Ridley Scott movies aren't nearly as good as his older ones, and I feel like this definitely had Denny's style all over it.
Rowan
Um,
Deakins was cinematographer. Roger
yeah. Oh,
Deakins.
Deakins is so good. He's
Yeah,
the goat.
yeah. The Deep God was on this one, and you can tell with the cinematography, it's beautiful.
Yeah, you should
Um,
watch some behind the scenes of it. He goes through some elaborate shit just to make these like what you would think is a simple lighting setup. He has these things. It's like a row of like 100 different lights just in a big circle for the scene with Jared Leto, with the replicant being born thing. And it's all these things that you think was just it's probably just a big light overhead or whatever, but very intricate things to get very specific looks, and it's so nitty gritty detail for this movie. Almost it's like a scientific level to get the movie to look the way it did, and it's so good. I highly recommend looking it up.
yeah, I that is interesting. I might just do that. Um, yeah, I like both of these films, and I think that they have a. It's like a Venn diagram, where aesthetically they reside on the outside, but there's a cohesive in terms of narrative themes, but cohesion in terms of narrative themes, but also
Mm,
even visual ones in terms of the future, the modern future, um, of these two films. You know, it is
mm,
the modern day's interpretation of the future. It's weird hearing them say years like 2019 and stuff like
mm.
that in the original film because that's where we're living now. And we
Yeah,
might not have all this crazy, shit, but we got lots of LED lights. That's what I was
yeah.
thinking. My whole living
And we
room is fucking full of them. So
and
we
we have
definitely are
screens on
getting there.
everything.
Definitely getting there.
I wonder. I was thinking about this as you were talking, because between like the mid 1800s up towards like that next 100 years, like technology and shit just advanced so quickly and so fast and transformed the whole world. And it kind of makes sense of why in the 80s they figured in 30 years shit would transform, like continue to at like exponentially transform at that rate. But really, it just kind of slowed down and just added in different ways. Like
I think it's still we're still exponentially evolving. It's just not in the ways that people think, because like a lot technology, the evolution of technology is predicated by the needs of the modern day. So you know, you have big leaps during wars. Big wars usually end up giant leaps in technology, but with our modern day and in this fictional world's day, it is driven by profit and capitalism. And you know, we're gonna have electric cars because it is now economically viable to create electric cars. It's not because the government said we should save the environment, I'm forcing you all to make electric cars. It is because the market now has become open to electric cars. Like or you know, like, even this is actually a better example. Automation, the self-checkout, right? Self-checkout. That was done as a response to you know, rising labor costs, and nowadays with the pandemic, worker shortages. And so more automation means less employees needed, and that's over time could become, you know, replicants. Automation could become robots that then, you know, not only are they going to check you out, but they got a robot stocking the shelves. They got a robot slicing the meat in the deli. They got a robot doing something else at Walmart. And next thing you know, there are no more human beings, or there's only managers. They're only technicians that fix the robots that work at Walmart. And that rapidly changes your economy. And I think that's the future we're kind of headed to, and I think it ends at something like this, not 1-to-1, you know, but I think that is a thing that is the cautionary tale of the corporate run world, capitalist society, purely capitalist society.
Yeah, I mean,
this wasn't my propaganda. This wasn't supposed to be a communist propaganda thing. It's just talking about the themes of the film and like the cons that come with it.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it always intrigues me with just like with a lot of these movies that go 30 years in the future, just the architectural design of everything immediately shifts widespread. Whereas like in reality, you know, we've got homes I'm in a house that was built in 1900, and you know, it still looks exactly the same and all that, but it's in these movies, it's like everything. But
cities are where you see the most of that, and
but even like downtown Pittsburgh,
you're right.
But even in Los Angeles, there's a lot of old buildings and homes that are still from the 1900s or whatever. Where in movies like this, they make it seem like everything got torn down and was rebuilt with chrome. And well,
I think that and I think societies, even, I don't want to go down this road too long, and my political hat is on, but you know, even that we're dealing with now is we have a road system, we have a plumbing system in this country, in America, that needs to be badly redone because it's over 100 years old, and it was made with lead pipes and what the fuck ever. Like that infrastructure degrades, and it gets to a point where it does need to be redone. And like in the cities, you know, you're gonna have skyscrapers that are over 100 years old, and eventually they're at least gonna need to be renovated. But I guess you're right that even in renovation, they're not gonna rapidly shift the architecture of the outside of the buildings. It's going to be mainly the same unless someone makes the choice to tear something down and rebuild it. So you are right. That is a good point. I'm thinking about both these movies is all the Egyptian shit. Both of these have pyramids in them, and I mean, when even the Las Vegas had so much Egyptian shit. And I guess
for sure.
I thought about that in the second one. And in the first one, the Tyrell, wherever the Tyrell place was, it was like a pyramid, and it was filled with like gold. Everything was gold. And the Wallace place had those vibes as well, but we never really got a good look at like the outside building.
I speaking of those pyramid stuff in the first movie, that's all miniatures with just
Yes.
painted backdrops, and it looks so good. And I
Miniatures
really,
always
really
look
wish,
good.
yeah, I really wish that the new movie was going to stick with mainly.
That's why Star Wars.
and-
That is why the old Star Wars looks so fucking good. It's because it's all miniatures.
It was so good, attention to detail with every little thing, and then
Yes,
mixing.
yeah.
Like, this movie mixes the miniatures with like painted backdrops, like regular
Matte
old school
paintings,
style.
yeah.
But it works. It fits. And and going along with the Egyptian thing, both movies, mainly the first one though, so much Japanese.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's Egyptian and Japanese, and I don't even think just Japanese, because there's Chinese culture in there as well. Asian, just like Southeast Asian culture mixed up in there as well. Because they even refer to the area as Chinatown in the first movie, I think.
Well, he goes to Chinatown at one point, but he starts in like a Japanese district.
Yeah, and a lot of the ads are Japanese, and Japanese stuff is a huge part of Cyberpunk, like katanas and kimonos and whatnot.
I really made me feel about like that Cyberpunk 2077 game. It was just, we're gonna take Blade Runner, but we're gonna make all of the corporations, like the Tyrell Corporation, is just gonna be Japanese corporation, and that's what's gonna, I guess, give the motivation for all of the Japanese aesthetic in the city and everything. Because it definitely, in the first one, it's like there's no way the entire movie takes place in Little Tokyo, but it's everywhere and everything. You see Japanese kanji on everything.
I think the reasoning is, now I'm just putting this together, is in the 80s, the Japanese were in their economic zenith. That's when like Sony and Nintendo and all these technology companies and even like in vehicles, Yamaha and motorcycles and music and like so much goods were getting exported all over the world. And they were at their economic peak. So I feel like that probably Blade Runner's interpretation of the future is one where the economic the Japanese economics become so big that they are now, the culture is now permeated into other countries. Kind of how the United States culture permeates to other countries through capitalism. Same kind of thing.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. It's like when I was in Japan, and you'd see someone wearing a shirt with just like English words on it, in the same way that like here we have something with a bunch of Japanese kanji on it, and we don't know what it says, but we think it looks badass.
Yeah, we do the same things.
You have things that just say like heart, or what was the one I saw that made me laugh? It was something like very normal. It was like a food, like hamburger.
Yes,
it was just written across a shirt. It's like sick.
I don't want to go, and I'm gonna just make this brief. But you have to remember, with Japanese American relations culturally, is that because we had the military base over there and occupied there after World War II, that there was a lot of sharing of culture back and forth between the two of us.
I mean, the U.S. Afterwards like helped rebuild like a lot of that country. So
at least oversaw, I think, is maybe the better word. What are you giving Blade Runner 2049?
I'm gonna give it a 4, because I like the first one better.
I think I'm also gonna give this one a 4.5. I was gonna give it I gave it a 4 the first time I saw it. This is the second time I saw it, but I think that it does deserve a 4.5.
If I could give it a 4.3, that's really where I'd probably be sitting, but I feel like that doesn't exist. So
honestly, the more I think about JF Sebastian, I can just download. They should just downgrade the whole series. So, so yeah. But all right, let's wrap this up. Next week we got Dune. We're doing David Lynch Dune, and we're doing Denis Villeneuve Dune. I wanted to talk about.
It's pronounced Villeneuve. Is it not Villeneuve?
No, it's Villeneuve.
Damn.
Because do you look this up, or do you just guess and assume that that's right?
No. This movie came out when I was living in Los Angeles, and everyone out there kept referring to him as Denis Villeneuve.
Honestly, I didn't look it up either. I say that snarkily to then say that I just heard it I was watching some videos about 2049 afterwards, and they pronounced it Denis Villeneuve. I think I actually watched a Dune review, and that's what they said it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to say it like this on the podcast.
Gotcha.
That's how you got it.
Yeah, I just did it from cultural
It's
context.
via, well, because villa is via
Via.
in Spanish, if it's not Portuguese. But I think even in Portuguese, it's still via. And then it's I thought it'd be like Nueve, like the number, but I think it's
Or like the one Steelers football player, his last name was something Nueva. That's spelled similar.
But yeah, it's just Nueve apparently. A new wave.
A new
But
wave.
all right, so yeah, next week's the Dune episode, and yeah, so hold on to your butts, sluts.
I'm so excited for this. I am so excited for these.
So make sure.
I'm sorry. Good.
All right. Well, I don't know. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and follow us on all the things, Spotify and YouTube and everything, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for coming out. See you, everybody.